No matter what kind of project you have around the shop, if you're looking for some tips and some help, it's time for Sam's Garage, presented by ARP with Master Mechanic Sam Mamolo.
Welcome to Sam's Garage. Well, last week we covered a lot of basic electricity, and I got a few more things I promised you I'd cover. Got our little electrical display board. So last week we looked at basic circuits with voltage, resistance, amperage, and of course we talked about dedicated grounds. And then we started running like the cool fan, the compressor clutch, the lights. We took an amp clamp and we measured from our battery how much the total amperage was, so we know how to size our alternator. But you know, you gotta have a good battery, but no matter how good the battery is, you gotta have good cables to deliver the battery's power to the vehicle. So get yourself a good kit, get a nice high quality. All I use is 1 gauge. The smaller the number, the thicker the cable. High quality battery cables. You can get a kit like this where the ends are on there. You cut it to length, you terminate it, put heat shrink on it. Then you won't have any resistance or high resistance. It'll give you a problem, particularly you guys that have to put the battery in the trunk. You got a long run. That takes care of that problem. Everything else is on a dedicated ground here. I told you I'm going to tell you about relays, circuit breakers, and the dreaded trinary switch, which is really pretty simple. Our friends at Vintage Air, of course, sent us this nice sanding compressor, whether it be serpentine or V-belt like this. The clutch is still the same, high current clutch. The trinary switch goes into your receiver dryer. This is in the high pressure side of your AC. It has multiple functions. If you have low pressure, you have a little freon leak, okay, the refrigerant gas carries the lubricating oil to the compressor, so it doesn't want to burn it up. If you have low pressure, it cuts out the compressor. If the head pressure goes real high because you're not getting good airflow, it'll cut out the compressor so you don't damage it. It's preset at a certain pressure, it'll turn on your electric cool fan. Now, the trinary switch wires through the relay. Here you have your 2 switches that you'd normally have in your air conditioner, your on-off and blower speed switch, and you have your temperature switch with the capillary tube that goes down to your evaporator. This is all wired through the trinary. Now, a lot of folks wire right from this switch to the compressor. When you turn it on, the compressor will engage and you'll have air conditioning and you're happy, but you're overloading this switch. That's 10 amps alone. This switch is only rated at 4 amps. You add the blower motor, especially on the Vintage Air Gen 4 systems where they're solid state, you can overload the switch, burn it up, and you think that's a faulty product when you just have it wired wrong. They have a great diagram, comes in the kit. I got this off the internet, I use it all the time. And it shows you exactly how to wire the trinary switch and the options you have. In addition to the trinary switch, through the relay turning the cool fan on, all right, you could also, like I did here, I added a manual override grounding switch. When I turn that on, that would also turn on the cool fan and would go into the ground side of the relay. And remember, the relay, these things work great. They're nothing but an electronic switch. And they use very low current across the coil, 150 milliamps, will switch 40 amps. So it's a great way to go. And so we'll use a relay to run the cool fan, even if you use a controller. So we take our 40 amp circuit breaker, which is just like this, that Vintage Air supplies in the kit, go up here to our relay. The relay is basically going to hook that heavy wire, the current coming from there, to this one that runs the cool fan, turns on the compressor. Let's talk about a relay real quick. Relays have basically 4 terminals on it. If you look at these relays, sometimes there's nomenclature, it shows you the coil, and you don't understand that. Right here on the diagram, there's relay logic, but I'll give you the numbers real quick. 85 and 86 are the coil. That's the open and close of the switch. Okay, 87 is normally open, 30 is your common with the power coming in. If you use the relay, when the relay is activated, it hooks the heavy current together. That keeps the load off of this. Use this as a relay from your ignition switch. Don't be putting a lot of heavy current draw on your ignition switch. It'll cause it to burn. When it comes to troubleshooting, again, I use my Power Pro Basic. This is a neat little unit, very affordable, hooks up to the battery. For example, if the clutch didn't engage and you wanted to troubleshoot it, go right to your clutch wire. All you have to do is ground this little lead right here. Once you ground that, when you take the power probe, hook it there, you see the green light? That tells you your circuit's complete. Push the button, and I'm sending battery voltage to the tip. Okay, so when I touch the Power Pro Basic to that lead, you see the green light? That means I've got a complete circuit. When I push the button, You can hear the clutch engage and see it move. That means the clutch is good and the wire to it is good. So then you just take your Power Pro Basic, start going back through the circuit till you find out where you have your open circuit. So with all that, if you take good battery cables, good battery, dedicated grounds, make sure all your connections are tight, you're not going to have any problem when it comes to the electrical system of your car. And of course, we got all these neat things. We've got our Flexolite cool fan running. We engage our clutch. We even got some lights on. That light works. I'm having fun with this. I hope you learned something. We're going to take a quick break. Got a lot more projects coming here at Sam's Garage, so don't you dare go away. You know, here at Sam's Garage, we choose the Easy Run engine test stand to run all our engines before we put them in a vehicle. It's fully complete, all made out of steel, powder coated, made in America, by the way. Has a full dashboard with a tachometer and all the gauges, radiator, fuel tank, battery box, all kinds of accessories. Super universal, imported domestic, engines bolt on it really easily, rolls around the shop well. It's a high quality product, Easy Run engine test stand.
Winners rely on ARP.
Hey, this is Fast Jack Beckman, and when you're driving a 10,000 horsepower nitromethane car, you can't afford to take chances. That's why Don Schumacher Racing uses nothing but ARP products.
And we use nothing but the best that keeps us right and tight. That's ARP.
You can have zero failure with your engine, and that's why we depend on ARP fasteners. I always have all my career, all my championships. I rely on ARP for one reason: they are the best.
Sam's Garage, presented by ARP, is brought to you by FiTech. Never buy a carburetor again. ARP, proudly made in the USA, the world leader in fastener technology. LMC Truck, restore, maintain, customize, parts and accessories for Chevy, GMC, Ford, and Dodge trucks and SUVs. And by KBS Coatings, the rust stops here.
Welcome back to Sam's Garage. Well, doing a little welding here, and boy, believe me, I take a lot of grief over my welding. I need to go to welding school. All the guys in my car club jump on me for my welding. I get by, do a little grinding here. What I'm doing is I've got some scrap angle iron. I'm building myself a stand, and this will be the top of the base. Checking it for square, it's in pretty good shape. I'm building this stand for a nice new toy I've got. I got myself a new HE&M saw, utility saw. And by the way, when you're welding, safety, helmet, gloves, make sure you have a fire extinguisher handy. Let me show you this saw. This is a great little product. You can see right here, this is the NG 120XL. This is a 1.7 horsepower variable speed motor. And of course, one of the things is you got a switch right here. You turn it on, it's got a trigger right here. The blade goes reverse rotation, gives you 60% faster cutting time. And it's got a safety clutch right up here for the blade, so you can't get in trouble with it. It's got great tensioning. Let me show you how precision this saw is. And of course, this caught my eye. I've been at the shows. You go to the hot rod shows and stuff, you see these guys doing demos all the time. This is really a neat saw. And once you get one of these, it'll be your go-to saw for anything, okay? This is just some round bar stock. Watch this cut. And the blade, I can touch the blade's not hot, that's not too hot to handle, and I can make them thinner than that. I can make my own money. And the neat part is, when you're welding something, the better deal you do on the cuts, the better your weld's gonna be, because obviously you don't have as much filler. And a guy that welds like me needs all the help he can get. Again, this saw has a couple of neat features. One is it's manual vise, but you know, when you wanna make a miter, most of the time you gotta move the vise and you have to move your material. Here, the head miters, okay? You just loosen this up, you don't move the material, you don't change the stuff out of the vise, and a 60-degree miter. Now, it's a great saw because you're gonna go to it, take some regular tubing, If you do tubing work and you want to do some notching, instead of going out and buying the expensive pipe notcher, set this, I think it's about 37.5 degrees. I got a little mark. I've been playing with this thing because once you get it, you're not going to want to give it up. Get yourself a piece of tubing, put it in here, lock your vise. You want to leave a little bit of a flat. Watch this thing cut tubing. This is great. Just like butter. Flip your tubing over. And I did say tubing, I didn't say tubing. Okay? Tighten your vise back up. And by the way, this motor, variable speed. Take that, take another piece of tubing. Look at that. If you do a good job, I didn't leave enough of a flat. You get practice with this thing, you get it nice and tight. You can make all kinds of different angles. And when you do your weld, it's going to be nice and strong and you won't have to have a lot of filler. It's a great way to go. With a guy like me that needs all the help he can get with the welding, cutting is the best thing. So let me square this back up. Set it right here at 0. You got a nice little arrow. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this piece of angle line I had. And if you watch this thing cut angle line, it does a great job. Now, one of the things you get with it, you get a nice little repeatability stop. It screws in here. This is adjustable. So if you're going to make multiple cuts, you know, you're going to use 10 4-inch pieces, 8-inch pieces, just put them in there one after another and they'll come out great. Get the vise tight. Make sure, by the way, it's got these great roller guides. They're adjustable. Get those in as close as you can. Right there. Let it get its cut, go right through. Nice clean cut. Does a great job. You know, hem saw, like I said, once you get one of these in your shop, and you can see right here, it's got 4 3/4 inch capacity. So it's not one of these little saws that you're going to use once in a while. You're going to go to this all the time. So let me throw my helmet back on. Maybe see if I can burn up a little bit more wire and see if I can get this together. As soon as I'm done welding with this, we're going to take a break. We come back. I'm going to want to paint this thing. So rather than use paint, I'm going to coat it. I'm going to show you a really nice coating. You know, here at Sam's Garage, we choose the Easy Run engine test stand to run all our engines before we put them in a vehicle. It's fully complete, it's all made out of steel, powder coated, made in America, by the way. Has a full dashboard with a tachometer and all the gauges, radiator, fuel tank, battery box, all kinds of accessories. Super universal, imported domestic, engines bolt on it really easily, rolls around the shop well. It's a high quality product, Easy Run engine test stand.
Winners rely on ARP.
Hey, this is Fast Jack Beckman, and when you're driving a 10,000 horsepower nitromethane car, you can't afford to take chances. That's why Don Schumacher Racing uses nothing but ARP products.
When we use nothing but the best that keeps us right and tight, that's ARP.
You can have zero failure with your engine, and that's why we depend on ARP fasteners. I always have all my career, all my championships. I rely on ARP for one reason: they are the best.
Welcome back to Sam's Garage. I have a friend that's doing a Firebird. He brought me this subframe. It's pretty rusty. It's been sitting outside. He's a paint and body guy. They take forever. He's got his car well on the way, brought it to me. He said, hey, can you go through it, put control arm bushings in it, put some ball joints, change the springs, get it ready to go in. He's also, could you slick it up a little bit? Well, it's got a little rust on it. We all see rusty frames. So I'm going to coat it with KBS coatings, which is a 3-step process, okay? First, you get all this in the kit. This is a cleaner, degreaser, cleans everything down, helps to get rid of rust. Then of course the blast. This is a powerful rust remover. These are all biodegradable, by the way. This etches it like an etching primer. And of course, it leaves a zinc coating behind it so the paint will really adhere to it. That's all outside because you're going to wash this off with a garden hose. So let's take it out, do the first 2 steps. All right, the first step is we're outside here. KBS Clean. This is concentrated, by the way. Makes 10 times its volume. Put it in a spray bottle with some water. And what you want to do is you want to spray it on. And depending, this is getting rid of grease, wax, any of that stuff. you want to get rid of that so the sealer will stick. So just coat this. Now you don't need a lot. I'm only going to do a section of this for now. Get it on there. It does its job. What you don't want to do is let it dry. You want to keep it wet. Now you should knock off the heavy rust with, some sandpaper or a wire brush. The more prep you do, the better it's going to look. But this really is a good degreaser. And if you stay it on it, now if it's really, really bad crud, you can let it stay on for a long time. It's not going to hurt anything. Sit there for a little bit, and I'll hose it off. The next step is KBS Rust Blast. Now what this is, it's a powerful rust removal. Okay, it minimizes flash rusting. It leaves the zinc phosphate coating behind. So again, we just spray this on. Now just like the first product when we used the clean, you want to get this on here good. And depending on how much rust you're dealing with, you can agitate this with a brush a little bit. It's biodegradable, it's non-toxic, not going to hurt the ground or your animals, which is real important to me. And you want to let it do its job. So you want to let it set for 10 or 15 minutes. Heavy rust, let it set for a couple hours. Just don't let it dry before you rinse it. Just keep it wet. And this is doing a great job. It's like a etching primer. And again, we're preparing the surface for the rust seal. This really does a great job of getting the rust off. All right, we've got our subframe inside. This rail that I used, the degreaser, the cleaner, and the blast. It's all dry now. You want to make sure it's perfectly dry, and you can see how it's the difference night and day between these two rails. Now, you get gloves. Wear the gloves, because I promise you, when this coating gets on you, that's the end of the story. It's on you. So you are fairly warned. You get a brush from the can, stir it up, and this just brushes on easy. Don't go whipping on it and making bubbles, but don't worry about the brush marks, because no matter how bad the brush marks are, they go away. When this is done, it's self-leveling, it flows out. What I'm doing here is I'm actually encapsulating the rust. When it says seal, it seals the oxygen. When you seal the oxygen and can no longer get oxygen, that's the end of the rust. And again, like I said, be careful. You notice I've got cardboard down underneath where I'm going. I'm not going to do this whole subframe, obviously, but I just got a drop there, and I don't want to get it on my pretty floor. I like my shop floor. By the way, this shop floor is KBS frame coater in a gray. Take your time now. I'm not going to go all the way up here because I'm going to work on this front, and I'm going to replace all these steel lines. These lines are, I don't know what year this Firebird is, but I know those lines are older than I am. And what we're doing here is totally encapsulating and sealing the rust. That will be the end of the rust. So let me go ahead and brush some of this on. We'll let it set, and you watch how it flows out. There it is after the first coat. No drips, no runs, no errors. It's absolutely beautiful. Second coat, it'll be even slicker. Let it cure good. It becomes real tough, but it's not going to, chip or crack. It really does a great job, and it's encapsulated the rust, so there is no more rust. To do the inside of the frame, we have our KBS cavity coater. You put this wand all the way down inside here. You pull the trigger, and you just start drawing it back, 360-degree spray, and that coats the whole inside. And of course, this passed a 4,000-hour salt spray, creeps into the wells. It really does a good job. This is how simple it is with KBS coatings to totally seal it out from rusting, making it look good. Would you rather look at this or that when you crawled underneath the car? I personally would do it in satin, not in gloss, but this guy wants gloss. We're gonna fix this all up, coat the whole thing, and I'll get it ready to go back to him. Right now, we need to take a break, so stick around. Here at Sam's Garage, we choose the Easy Run engine test stand to run all our engines before we put them in a vehicle. It's fully complete, it's all made out of steel, powder coated, made in America, by the way. Has a full dashboard with a tachometer and all the gauges, radiator, fuel tank, battery box, all kinds of accessories. Super universal, imported domestic, engines bolt on it really easily, rolls around the shop well. It's a high quality product, Easy Run engine test stand.
Winners rely on ARP.
Hey, this is Fast Jack Beckman, and when you're driving a 10,000 horsepower nitro methane car, you can't afford to take chances. That's why Don Schumacher Racing uses nothing but ARP products.
And we use nothing but the best that keeps us right and tight. That's ARP.
You can have zero failure with your engine, and that's why we depend on ARP fasteners. I always have all my career, all my championships. I rely on ARP for one reason: they are the best.
Sam's Garage, presented by ARP, is brought to you by Advertising Edge, the official uniform of the NHRA. TR Tools, save your time, save your knuckles. HE&M Saw, the saw that cuts straight. ARP, proudly made in the USA, the world leader in fastener technology.
Welcome back. Well, I've made a decision on our 5-liter Ford. I'm going with electronic fuel injection. I know it's early, I don't even have pistons in the engine yet, but I'll tell you what, this is the time when you start thinking about compression ratios, combustion chamber size, camshaft, all that stuff. Figure out what you're going to do with the engine and what you want out of it. Like I said, mile straight road at 300 horsepower. Here's what they were going to do for electronic fuel injection. This is FiTech. This is a really nice unit. Now this is matte black finish. I like matte black. They have the same unit in polished. It's a 4-barrel. It bolts on any square bolt manifold. It'll also go on a spread bore with an adapter, okay? And it's got progressive linkage, and it's self-contained. Everything's in here, including the control unit. So you don't have a separate box or separate wire harness. You can really neaten the wire harness up. And of course, this will support from 200 horsepower up to 600 horsepower. A pressure regulator, idle air controller, intake air temperature sensor, throttle position sensor. Everything is in here, and it's self-tuning. You hook it up, follow the instructions, which I was reading here. They're really easy to put on. And then of course you have your little touch screen here. You can do touch screen, or you have a little joystick, up and down, 2 ways to navigate this. Answer a few questions, fire it up. It uses a wideband oxygen sensor, which is right here, okay? And between that and the temperature sensor, the manifold absolute pressure sensor in here, it self-tunes. The more you drive it, the better it is. Now here they've got a power adder. What this is used for is with a wet nitrous system or suck through or blow through supercharger, turbocharger. You can even use it with a Roots supercharger. Now, you've got to get fuel pressure to these things. So you want to convert your car from carburetor to fuel injection. It's real simple. They got a nice high pressure pump that mounts on the rail. You want to get this below the level of the tank. In this kit, you get all the hoses, the clamps for the pump. You get all of the filters, the brackets, the fittings, all push-on fittings. And of course, you're going to have a pre-filter and a post-filter. Now with this system, you got to have a return line back to the tank. You know, they're trying to make it real easy for you at FiTech. If you have a return system on your car, that'll work fine. If you don't have a return system, no, in most systems, you're going to have to drop the tank and put one. Here's a good way to go. FiTech has what they call the Fuel Command Center. This is really neat. It's got a high pressure pump submerged. This is really the way to go because when the pump is submerged, it lasts a long time. If you got a carbureted engine and a mechanical fuel pump, take the line from the pump to the carburetor and run it here, and it says right here, low in. Come out of here, high pressure over to the FiTech throttle body. You got fuel pressure gauge, pressure regulator, you got to use a vented gas cap. This delivers high pressure with no return line. So that makes it real easy. That way, in a weekend, on a Saturday afternoon, you can go from carburetor to fuel injection. And when it comes to putting in the wideband oxygen sensor, they got a nice little bracket here. All you have to do is drill a hole in your exhaust pipe. To supply the clamps, you clamp that on your exhaust pipe, screw your wideband sensor in there, plug it in. This is all plug and play. Put it together, follow the instructions. They have a quick start guide that tells you what you want to do, how you hook it up, how to navigate the little screen, fire it up, let it run. Once you start seeing temperature on the temp sensor, manifold absolute pressure sensor or MAP sensor, it's a speed density system. It tunes itself. And then of course, you know, if we don't like the power and we change the cam, we don't have to reprogram. Just drive down the road, this will self-tune itself for your new cam, put a bigger set of heads on, whatever you do. Again, up to 600 horsepower, got you covered here. You're up to 1200 horsepower, a power adder for wet nitrous systems, all done by a touch screen or a joystick. It's really, this all comes in the kit, easy to install. It's gonna be great for this Ford motor. And by the way, this is much less than the competitive system, so you'll see a lot more of it as we hook it up, make it run in the Easy Run engine test stand, and dial in our fuel injection. Well, I hope you enjoyed our show today. I know I had a ball, and I'm looking forward to making this work, so Tune in to Sam's Garage next week. We'll see you.